I've been privileged to photograph people who are the best in the world at what they do. Whether it's Stephen Hawking or Paul McCartney or David Hockney, these people have defined the era in which we live.
In this episode, the Friday following the 2024 American elections, I'm trying to channel my what to say after an event that's moved, dare I say, maybe disappointed a few people and friends, whilst being respectful to the fact that not everybody thinks it's all bad, and those who dearly like to move forwards because whatever their opinions or beliefs, they just feel simply and utterly exhausted by all the noise-ness. If you can channel that long sentence of a feeling, that is. And I've come up with this. An episode devoid of politics, because that is, after all, what this show was really all about. Walking and talking with a camera, listening to the birds, though there doesn't appear to be many of those. I'm in the middle of what would have once been the long runway on the disused USAF airbase called Greenham Common. Not a lot of birds here today. It's a bit of a bleh day in terms of weather. But yes, doing that, listening to the birds maybe, walking in the rain, the snow, the searing sunshine at times, and wrestling with a dog treats tin, whilst trying to hold on to my microphone and looking rather odd whilst doing so to passers-by. It's a show that feels, well, it's a bit chilly out, as my grandma used to say, before giving you a cup of scalding hot Bovril in a mug that's so hot it leaves your hands red for an hour. So yes, I've come up with this. An episode where I simply walk and natter with a very special photographer called Chris Floyd, close to his home in Oxfordshire, along a series of very, very, very muddy paths about his career, the people he's met, the stories he's told, and how he's decided to channel his creative life behind a lens before arriving, perhaps even meandering, because I think today's a bit of a meander, to the end of the show. Complete spoiler alert now. Well, not complete, and don't you dare press the fast forward button, where he says, and I had to go back and do a word count on this, he says 20 words. My guest, Chris, this is. He repeats a quote, actually, from somebody I guess he respects as a mentor. And it's 20 words that will have you think, I think, so very differently about photography, or just simply taking pictures, particularly if you photograph people. It's probably, possibly, one of the best answers to my why question at the end of an interview ever. Now, I know when you make a grand statement like that, you can be setting yourself up for a bit of a fall or maybe a bump in the path, perhaps not a fall. But when he said it, I remember thinking at the time, at the moment he said it, I thought, oh, that's rather good, that is. And I even listened back to the raw recording in the car on the way home, something I never usually do, just so I could listen to it again. Now, whilst it might not change your life, it has, like the food that's been left to marinate beautifully in a fridge overnight. It's become better and more relevant to me and more tasty every single time I hear it. So, yeah, blimey, Neil, that is a statement. I can see my other listener looking at me. That's a statement. Yes, it is. Anyway, this chat, this walk, I think will be the first of a few with Chris, because I went thinking we'd talk about all these fascinating people that he's met and had a chance to talk with and photograph. And we do, to an extent. We talk about Christopher Reeve, the royal family, Hockney. So we do talk about some of these fascinating characters. But actually we end up chatting about life and school and decisions, and one of my favourite topics, actually, the theory of sliding doors. Slidey whatties, Neil? Sliding doors. Basically this thought that even the smallest choices or moments, like, in the movie called Sliding Doors, missing a train or choosing one direction over another, can completely change the course of your life. It's like if you'd have done one thing slightly differently, you'd end up with a totally different life story. It's all about those what-if moments. Now, I know you know that, but my other listener was looking a bit confused. So, yes, this is a walking conversation today, one of those episodes with Chris Floyd, a British photographer, although he worked for many years in the States, and that's another episode worth recording completely independently. I'll introduce you properly in a moment, but here's here's a marinated flavour of what's to come.
Today on the Photo Walk.
You know, I've been there for sports days and events and things, and that's because I've sort of managed to structure a life, but you know, as much by luck as by design, in which the work serves my existence rather than my existence serving the work. Once I was printing, I was off and away, you know, didn't look back because it was just so exciting. The photography is a way for me to meet people. Without it, I wouldn't meet many people. You know, I'm not very outgoing without the camera, and the camera kind of gives me an alter ego. Don't be afraid to open yourself up to serendipity. Like the hand, I didn't plan that. The thing I remember him saying was, photography doesn't come close. Doesn't even come close. Like that.
He sounded quite angry then.
No, but it was really fun.
That's Chris Floyd, my guest on the show today. Welcome along as we make our photo walks together, a show where we walk and make pictures, photographically sketchbooking our time together each week, enjoying the letters and inspirational stories you've sent in and listening back to studio conversations with guests from around the world. And I'd like you to know how thankful I am to those who've kept me walking with a microphone for the last 4 years. Thank you to those who believe in the podcast enough that you're now a Patreon member or an extra miler, as I know you. And also to mpb.com, who sponsor this show. Not just the sponsor bit, but because they've been part of the force that have believed in the show enough so that it's still here today. A service I use for buying, selling and trading used camera gear is MPB. As a website platform, mpb.com is the place where I can safely buy, sell and trade quality used photo and video gear online. And online guarantees make this a place I feel safe to buy from, unlike some other marketplaces. Here's how it works. You go online to mpb.com and search for gear that you'd like to add to your kit bag. Or if you're selling gear you no longer need, click the button at the top of the website that says Start Selling and Trading and just follow the very easy instructions. From there, you print off a packing label, stick it on the box with all your gear in it. It's collected by a courier free of charge from your front door. And the best bit, MPB pays you for your camera gear within days. And a news flash for November, if you're upgrading your gear this Black Friday, shop used, save year round. So join me and the hundreds of thousands of photographers every year in the US, Europe and the UK who know that MPB is the place to buy, sell, trade and create. Right, today it's a walk and talk episode, so no letters. They are in themselves marinating beautifully for a return next week for the special on imposter syndrome with Sean Tucker. I do have a small something to say about our Scottish retreat though, and I will remind you about the assignment later on during the show. Right, shall we walk? Checklist out. Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Very waterproof walking boots for this episode, check. SD cards, or if you like a spare roll of film, check. Let's walk.
There may not be many birds in the background today. That sort of blur weather day where the birds think, oh, not today. I'll stay in today. I'll just hide over here in the tree. I'm not doing any singing today, but there is in the background just you'll hear it here and there, I think, as I move between the bushes within the woodland where I'm walking at the moment. There's the sound of the chutney factory. I call it the chutney factory. I think they make much more than chutney there, but the smell of chutney from this part of the old airfield at Greenham Common where I'm walking today is, it's pronounced. You can probably smell it yourself. Go on, smell. Go on. Don't be afraid, just have a good sniff. Do you smell chutney? You do, don't you? Tell me. Do you smell it, pups? Do you smell it? I think you do. Yeah, I do. You're absolutely right. Yes, you're right. But today it seems to be, I don't know what they're doing, but it's making a hell of a racket. They must be working overtime on the chutney. I'm feeling hungry. Oh, I do like a chutney. Right, before you hear the very, very real squelches that I take with my as I walk along the path with my guest Chris today, two grown-up men gradually getting caked in mud, slipping downhill as fast as they can walk uphill. Let me tell you a bit about Chris Floyd. Chris Floyd is a renowned British photographer, known for capturing celebrities and everyday people with an honesty that feels very real and raw, actually. I will just say this, I say celebrity a few times, and I said it there on purpose, really, to make a point. I also say it on the extra mile before listening back in the edit and realising that at some point Chris says he doesn't really care for the word celebrity. See if you can spot it. It sticks out like a sticky out thing in an analogy that's just not coming to me right now. He's worked with some of the biggest names. I mentioned some, didn't I? David Hockney, Christopher Reeve, the royal family, Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney is one of those people that I'd so dearly love to meet and photograph and talk with. Kate Moss. I mean, the names go on and on and on, but he's equally celebrated for his personal projects like 150 Faces, a series documenting the staff of British Vogue, which I mention because it's relevant to a conversation we had a few weeks ago about Vogue House. But also, it's a reason for a second, third or possibly fourth visit to spend time with Chris, because it was on my list of questions, but we ran out of path and light. Chris Floyd's work has this knack for finding humanity, I think, in his subjects. His images invite you into people's eyes, and we all know what they say about souls and eyes, whoever they are, but it's very true. Here's the start of my conversation today. It's a meander as well, a photo meander with Chris Floyd. Last time we chatted, Chris, we were just discussing this. It's further away than I remember. It's 2020. We were still living in a life where things could be closed down within a moment's notice. You hadn't shot the royals, which we'll come to. Looking back at that time, do you remember what it was like for you as a photographer? For me, it was hopeless.
What, the COVID era, those times.
I try not to talk about them these days, but since it relates to when we first chatted.
It's a sort of blur. I do remember the first few months of it being unbelievable weather.
Yeah.
Sort of April, May 2020. And it being really fantastic weather. You know, obviously I live out in the countryside, so it wasn't really too oppressive for us. No. Because you could just go out for a walk and not see anyone, and you know, we were in our little village, and you know, we've got a butcher and a baker, and you could just get everything you needed from them, no problem. And then work-wise, I had done quite a big advertising job a couple of months earlier that fortunately kept us going for quite a while. So there wasn't any pressure in the short term. And then I did take out the government BBL, business bounce back loan. Bounce back loan, yeah.
Still got mine, it's still being paid off.
I've paid 2/3 of it back. I took it out and I didn't touch it, and now it's just going back month by month. So I fortunately didn't have to spend it, and the money they gave me is gradually just dripping back to them. So I was lucky, really. And then I did have some NHS. I mean, the NHS seemed to be commissioning a lot of work. You know, you keep 3 metre, 1 metre distance, or whatever it was, 3 metres, I can't even remember the distance, 2 metres. 2 metres, you know, they were commissioning stuff, and I shot quite a few things for the NHS, some moving image stuff with nurses, and then some stills, and then also later on in 2020, sort of in the autumn, I did a job for the National Lottery, who had given a load of money through the Arts Council to community projects who had done COVID-related art projects to help keep people sane. And I did an incredible job for like two or 3 weeks, going around Britain and Northern Ireland, photographing people who'd done sort of uplifting things in their communities. It was bizarre in the sense of just, we drove all over. I mean, I remember I did about 3,000 miles in 2 weeks. Yeah. Which is
That's a lot.
That's a lot of distance in Britain. Yeah. You can do that easily in America, but it's hard to do that in Britain. Yeah, we covered a huge amount of ground, and it was, remember going on the M62 from, would it be Leeds to Manchester? Is that the M62? It was, and there being at like 7 o'clock in the evening, absolutely not a car in sight.
Was that during the period then where we were being stopped for making unnecessary journeys?
Don't really remember that, but I sort of had a pass because I've got a press card. So, if you've got a press card, you can, you're doing news, basically.
Yeah.
But I do remember on that motorway, it was so totally silent, we actually stopped the car and got out and took some pictures of the
Actually on the motorway?
But there was nothing, nothing.
No. It was proper 28 days later stuff, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it really was.
I remember seeing the city. I think it became a bit of a cliche shot in the end, but city streets that were quiet and nobody there but cats and dustbin lids. But that period, I don't know how you feel. I occasionally will come across a line on a path and it still has the old 2 meters apart thing, and there's part of me that just wants to get down on my knees and scrub the thing off.
Keep your distance.
Yeah. Because it wasn't a great time at all. I went to, where was it? York Railway Museum with my son, my youngest, 3 years ago, and in the, and what would they call it? Antiquities? Anyway, collections of stuff from platforms. Behind a glass case, there was a COVID gel dispenser from that period of when we were just going mad with our hands, and I thought, this is now an antique. It's a piece of memorabilia.
Do not touch the display.
Yeah, it was weird. I like your. I should have turned the microphone on in your house, because I think a good proportion of this show could have been just looking around your house. I did mention to Chris that he has the perfect house for a Through the Keyhole, if they still make that show edition. But I like this concept that we discussed, that life for you doesn't start until midday.
Yeah, that's right. And I can trace back to a very specific moment when I realised that this could be a way to live your life. I've never liked mornings. I've never liked getting up. I'm a night owl. I'm at my most creative late at night. And when I was very young, probably 13 or 14, there was a Q&A in Smash Hits magazine.
Smash Hits.
With John Taylor from Duran Duran.
Yeah.
And one of the questions was, what time do you get up? And his answer, written verbatim, this is how it was written, was, about 11. And I remember seeing that and just thinking, there's jobs you can do where you don't have to get up until 11. I want one of those jobs.
It doesn't work like that, though, on shooting days.
No, not on shooting days, but I'm not, when I've got a shooting day, I'm more or less keen to get up.
Yeah.
But generally, if I'm working at home in my office in the loft, I just don't feel ready before about 1, and I've got chores to do as well. So it's sort of mornings, I kind of do anything to avoid going into that office. Walk the dog, go to the shops, go and, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Let's go and buy food for dinner.
So it's real domestic bliss stuff in the morning.
I need to go to the hardware shop and get a new watering can. I'll do that. Anything like that. It's anything to avoid facing the loneliness of self-employed freelance content provider life.
Yeah, but you have to come back to it come the afternoon, or does that seem okay by then?
I feel ready by the afternoon.
Right.
I'm ready. I feel warmed up, and I'm enthused to get started.
The reason why I was so delighted to hear that, and you probably thought I was somewhat over-exuberantly fascinated by that, but it was because, and I think it might have been COVID. It's certainly, just mentioning that word for the last time now, but it's certainly also the arrival of my dog, Sabarkalot, or Barney. I love the name of yours. What's it?
Virginia Woolf.
Virginia Woolf, not Florence. Virginia Woolf. I love that. But I like to walk the dog, and I really like this idea of starting your day, turning the day on its head, and ending later. Yeah. Mediterranean.
But it's also, I always wanted to have a life where, my dad is retired now and he's 82, but he was an accountant. He had his own firm. He was a partner with 2 or 3 other people, and every day my whole memory of my childhood was that he would get up at 7:30 and he would leave for the office at 8:15 and he would come home at about 6 o'clock, and he lived this incredibly regimented timetabled life, and he always seemed tired when he came home, and he didn't really want to talk to anyone for maybe 45 minutes after he got home. And I just have always thought that how great it is to build a life for yourself, a career where the work you do is there to serve your life the way you would like to live, so I've been very lucky in that I've managed to sort of pull that off. And I've spent a lot of time, my children are in their late teens now, but I've spent a lot of time with my kids growing up. I've been there, I've taken them to school, I've picked them up, I've been there for sports days and events and things, and that's because I've sort of managed to structure a life, but as much by luck as by design, in which the work serves my existence rather than my existence serving the work. The job is there to allow me to have, touch wood, a pleasant time on this planet. I'm not here to sacrifice myself for the work. It's an equal relationship.
And I can see how proud you are of that work, because if you, like me, had the privilege to just spend a few moments walking around, I'm very nosy. I could have stood in all of your rooms, said, what's that? When did you get that? When did you buy that? Everything, right down to the rocking horse, I wanted to ask questions about. There's so much of your work there. I know there's some other work from other photographers.
Well, my work's free.
That's true.
Buy it.
There's no copyright going on here.
I'd love to buy other people's work, but I don't.
But it's nice you've surrounded yourself with what feels to me like your history.
Yeah, it is. I've got things that, I like that picture, I'm going to put it on the wall.
Yeah.
Or, my wife Alice is incredibly, she's a massive champion of me, and couldn't have done any of it without her, really.
She's quite arty.
She's very, she's got good taste.
Right.
She married me. So she'll say, I really like that. Can we put that up in the kitchen? Or can we put that up in the living room? More often than not, it's her hassling me to get prints made, to put in frames and put them on the wall. Because quite often you're sort of, particularly when you're working for clients, if they're happy with the end result, then I'm happy. And that's my main motivation.
And your kids, are they? They're young adults now, really, practically. But are they proud of Dad's work? Champions of Dad?
You'll have to ask them. I'm not going to be so presumptuous as to say if they're proud or not. I think we get on. I think they like the fact that I've done a lot of cool 90s musicians. Yeah. I think they like that, because quite often a lot of my music stuff turns up on TikTok and things like that. And I'm not on TikTok, but my younger daughter is.
My youngest son is, and he'll say, "I've just heard a new song." It's never a new song. It's it's something that was big in the 80s.
Speeded up version of an old song.
Yeah. I saw, what was it? The front cover of had your Oasis picture. Was it a young-looking Liam?
Yeah. That's Esquire.
Esquire.
Yeah. That's a picture from '94.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a real surprise. I didn't know, because I know the people at Esquire, because I do work for them. The editor is quite a good friend of mine, and when it came out, they sent me a copy in the post, and I opened it, and I was completely taken by surprise that it was the cover. Right. And I said, well, how come you didn't tell me? And he just said, I thought it'd be a nice, because they got it from Camera Press, who are my library, a syndication library agency. So they got it from Camera Press, and I didn't know about it. And I said, why didn't you tell me? And he just said, I just thought it'd be a nice surprise for you.
Yeah. Were you, you photographed a lot of the Britpop action. Come on, were you Oasis or Blur? You can't be both, because it's a bit like being United or City.
I like them both. However, no, I'm gonna give you. However, although I like Blur on a more intellectual level, I loved Oasis on an emotional level.
Yeah. What do you think about the comeback?
I think the excitement about the comeback is going to be the best part of it.
Yeah.
And that once the shows get underway, it's like anything. The build up to the cup final is always greater than the cup final itself, isn't it?
And do you think you'll get a chance to photograph?
I don't think. I doubt it. No. But I have bought tickets.
Oh right, you have.
Yeah. Well, I've got teenagers who want to go, so I had sit in an online queue for 3 hours, 4 hours. And
You didn't have to pay the hugely inflated prices,
no,
did
we
you?
fortunately got in on the normal prices before they went up.
Yeah.
But still a lot.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've got a ticket somewhere for a Verve gig at Hay Hall in Wigan in 90, which was a huge 40,000 head show. That was 98, and I've got a ticket, and I think it was like £22.
Wow, so that was a lot then.
Yeah, but it's not as much as £250 is now.
No, sure. With compound interest.
Yeah.
I found the other day I was looking through some memorabilia of music stuff for whatever reason, I can't remember. And I found a ticket that I had for Queen at Wembley. And I don't remember the face value of that ticket.
Like the 80s, 85, 86.
Was it 85, 86? Could have been. Well, they had two other bands on the ticket. Hi. Two other bands on the ticket. One was the warm-up act, I think, was Status Quo. So was it that one? I think it might have been. Kind of Magic Tour, I think.
Yeah, Kind of Magic would have been, what, 87?
Was it?
I mean, I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool Queen obsessive, but I know Kind of Magic, I think, was 87.
Well, there was another band on there, and I remember getting the tickets and saying to Alistair, the friend that said, we should get these tickets. First big pop concert I think I'd been to like that. And I said, yeah, but who's this third band? Inks. Inks? We were still saying Inks until somebody introduced them as In Excess in the actual moment. Oh, I love that. I think that was the moment where I really wished I could be a rock star. Never to be.
Our dreams.
Yeah.
Destined to die.
Yeah, never mind. All right.
Come to the end.
A gate.
We're going to have to touch the gate, because you always touch the gate.
Touch the gate. Doesn't mean we turn back and go the other way back, does it? That's not.
No, unfortunately.
Can we do?
There is a.
Can we break across David Beckham's land or something?
That way.
Right. Let's do that. You live in a beautiful part of the world. Look at this. I mean, this is a far cry from London and the metropoles where you work. Are you a city boy, or have you grown into being a country boy?
I grew up just outside, a couple of miles from the M25.
Yeah, that well-known London car park.
Yeah, in Surrey. And when I was in my teens, I could not wait to get to London. Couldn't wait to get there. Did move there. Spent, how long? Spent 10 years in London, yeah, and then moved to New York for 7 years. Then came back to London, and I didn't see myself ever wanting to leave London.
No.
I imagined myself living the rest of my life living in London, and I was very happy with that. I love cities. I had no interest in moving to the country, but my wife Alice she was the one that really wanted to live in the country, and we came up here to Oxfordshire. I came up on a job near here in 2010, and stayed in this little village and had such a great time. I thought, oh, this is all right. I could live here.
You could do this one.
So I went home and said, I've been to a place in the country I'd be prepared to move to.
Prepared?
Yeah, because it's all what she wanted. And then it was almost like, okay, we can reach a compromise here and make it work. So we sort of came up and down for 2 or 3 years. We would come on day trips up here and look around.
So we're in, where are we? This is Oxfordshire still?
Yeah, we're in Oxfordshire.
Just on the very edge.
We're near Banbury.
Right.
Between Banbury and Chipping Norton. And then Warwickshire, the sort of Oxfordshire-Warwickshire border is only a couple of miles away.
Yeah, I thought so.
And then you can go not far to the east, and you come into Northamptonshire. And then Gloucestershire is also just a few miles to the west.
All the beautiful shires.
So, it's shire-tastic here.
And you live with, the Valley of the Stars. I live in the Valley of the Racecourses. Valley of the Racehorse is where I live. But you live in the Valley of the Stars, because Nadav Kanda is just over there. I'm pointing like you can see out the other side of a podcast. And Mr. Beckham is just back that way. In fact, is that his land?
We're not on his land. We're on the estate land here. That belongs to the estate. Beckham's somewhere over there. And then we've also got Simon Cowell, I think, lives here. Quite a few people. Oh, and of course Clarkson.
Oh, is Jeremy Clarkson here?
Yeah.
Is his farm near here?
Yeah, it's very near here.
Is it?
Yeah. And then Caleb from who I don't know, but Caleb, who is the farm guy.
Yeah.
You see him at Chipping Norton all the time.
Yeah. He's become a celeb.
He's become a celeb. Yeah. His name's Celeb rather than Caleb now.
That's probably true. So your photography starter.
But can I say we were here first?
You were here first.
Not before Clarkson.
Oh, none of that
we
lot
were here
moved
before
in.
Beckham.
Right.
I mean, they followed us.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they followed us.
They said that Chris is onto something. That Floydy, I think we might have to go and have a look. Yeah. Do they use the same pub we're about to go to in about half an hour, or a bit longer than that?
They have been known. They have been seen. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's go around
my
this way.
X100V ready. Starting photography though, how did you start out? Because Dad was an accountant, we've already discovered. You probably didn't want to follow that by what you were seeing from Dad's working patterns.
I mean, I did used to work for him in the school holidays and stuff
Did
when
you?
I was sort of 16, 17. And
Has that sharpened your business?
I've got his... I'm good at
Skills,
maths.
yeah.
I got an A for my maths O level. I'm so old I did O levels. I didn't even do GCSEs. I'm good at maths, and I've got his sense of finance, of how to understand what debits are and what credits are, basically.
Business acumen.
It's just don't spend more than you earn. I mean, that's sort of it.
That's your business plan.
That's my plan. Yeah.
Well, it's worked out pretty well. So when did the photography come into your life?
So yeah, in my teens. So Dad also had a Pentax ME Super, and I used to use it, and then I just really got into. What I loved about it was at that age was the precisionness of all the clicks and the buttons and the dials, and when you turn the aperture ring, the way it would go click click click, click in a very precise way. Yeah. And it had this gold sticker on it that said Asahi Optical Company of Japan, passed, as if it passed.
I remember
inspection.
those stickers. Yeah.
And it was like, this is an important and special device, and it's got a gold sticker on it. It's that sort of. There was something mesmerising about it at the age of 13, 14. And I was allowed. He would let me handle it and use it, and so it was really from there. And then I was also in a drama group in my teens, and I used to do pictures of the productions and the pictures of the cast, who were all people of my age, all teenagers. So it was a great training ground for just learning how to take pictures of people, and I had a ready group of people who were
willing to.
And then from there, we built a dark room in the garage, and my godfather was in the repro business, so he ran a repro printing house. Yeah. So we got all the gear. I got a sort of darkroom kit for Christmas, and we sort of set it all up in the garage, and we just kind of blacked out the garage. And then he actually showed me how to process film and how to make a print.
So it was an uncle.
Yeah. So he showed me that, and then once I was printing, I was off and away. Didn't look back, because it was just so exciting to shoot some film in the afternoon, go and process it in the evening, let the film dry, and then make a contact sheet the next day, then make some prints, and you've done it all yourself, and there it is.
Did you go to college or uni?
I did go. I went to a sixth form college
with photography specifically.
As a BTEC 2-year OND.
And what did you think you'd make of that? Be a photojournalist, or?
I always knew that I wanted to do portraiture. I think I wanted to do people. I wanted to meet interesting people. I wanted to meet people who had achieved things. I was never interested in fashion. I was certainly never interested in still life or interiors. I mean, I like to do a landscape now and then when I'm travelling or on holiday. But really the primary motivation was using the camera as a tool by which to meet exciting people.
Although am I right in thinking one of your first major jobs as you arrived in London, correct me if I fast forwarded far too much, is the poll tax riots?
Oh, no, I didn't. No, I just left home and moved to London on the day of the poll tax riots.
Okay. No, you weren't in the middle of it with a camera.
I didn't go anywhere near them.
Right.
No. I mean, that would be terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I could have believed you'd have done it. Yeah.
No, I moved. It was all going on the day I was sort of packed up and left home and drove the 19 miles from Surrey to my flat share in Putney.
So pick the story up for me then. So how did you become a professional? Because then there's this move to New York that you've alluded to.
Much later. Yeah. So I've got a darkroom at home. I'm doing BTEC diploma, and I sort of started A-levels, maths. I was doing maths, French and economics A-levels.
Yeah. And
I did a year of those, and my heart just wasn't in it because I'd really got into photography by then. And then my dad said, well, why don't you go to college and do a photography course? Yeah. So I went to college in Ewell in Surrey, near Epsom, which is Nescott, North East Surrey College of Technology, Nescott for short.
Right.
Started on the BTEC, did 2 terms, and during the Easter break in the first year, I did a week's work experience at a studio in London. And
who with?
He was called Francis Loney.
Right.
And he was a photographer who shot a bit of everything people.
Yeah.
He'd do actors' headshots, and he'd do a bit of work for things like TV Times and Woman's Own magazine and stuff like that. And I did a week with him, and then he asked me if I wanted to stay on. And he said to me, one of the things was that I could process film because I had a darkroom at home. And when he had sort of taken me on, he said, you say you can process film, but can you process film using the metal spools?
Oh, the American ones?
The film spools.
Yeah.
And I had never seen a metal one. I'd only used the Patterson plastic ones. And I just thought, well, they'll just be the same.
They're not.
But metal.
No.
They're not.
No, I know.
They're not. So I'd gone, yeah, no problem. Of course, he gave me some film to process, and I just buggered it all up.
No.
There were like kinks in it, those little half moon fingernail kind of shaped kinks in it, and I did 6 weeks with him, and then I just could not get the hang of these bloody spools, and then he just sacked me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He just, I'm going to let you go. And then I was back. I was absolutely mortified. I was completely mortified. And then I was sort of back at home for a while. And then I got another job at a studio called The Works, which was in the King's Road. And then from there, I worked there for a while. And then from there, and then I started sort of freelance assisting, just working for different photographers. And I met a great photographer called Paul King, who was, or is, just a fantastic, very knowledgeable, skilled, old school photographer who knows his craft. And I really learned a huge amount from working for him. Learned about large format cameras working for him. I learned about different films. I saw how he handled clients. He's incredibly charming. He's quite good looking, Paul. Yeah. And he definitely had a charm about him. And he was a lovely, lovely guy. And he really, and he let me use his studio, and he'd lend me his gear. And
oh, perfect.
I remember the first time I ever went on a foreign trip, he just lent me, he just, only had one camera then, had one Nikon F3 by that point, and I think like one lens. And I went on this trip to America for a job, and he just lent me a bag. He just, what do you want to do? Do you want to borrow a bag of Nikons? I remember him saying that to me, because he had so much gear.
It's a bag of sweets.
Yeah, it was literally, just take a bag of Nikons. That was his.
Take what you want.
So I took a bag for like 3 bodies and about 8 lenses and like everything. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
So that was, I assisted Paul. I really learnt a lot from, and we became pretty, good pals. And also we both like cricket, so we played in a cricket team together. And
international language of. Yeah. So that was how you started, and then I guess it becomes this inexorable role of the next opportunity, and suddenly you find yourself on your own.
It was not easy. I mean, because it was also the early 90s was quite a grim period. That's 90 to 93. It was a recession. The sort of John Major years were quite bleak.
It's weird because I was working for the BBC then. And even though I could see my father was struggling with his business during that period, I was in a pretty protected environment because the license fee came in. for those that understand around the world what the BBC licence fee is, and it was almost like, oh, what a recession for me.
So it was, and also I'm young, I'm trying to get a break, and it's the worst time to start out is because the people with all the skill and experience, they're not getting any work either. No. So when something comes up that you with no experience is and no connections is certainly not going to get anything. No. There's not enough crumbs on the table, Yeah. So that was 90 to 93, early 94, but I had begun doing bits and pieces for a music magazine called Select, which was a fantastic music mag. And I met the art director was a guy called Steve Reed, and I had been to see him with my portfolio, because also, if you're listening at home, kids, this is pre-internet days, so if you wanted to show your work to someone, you had to actually go and show your work to them physically with a portfolio. So I would go and see Steve at Select. Probably, I must have been to see him 4 or 5 times over probably like an 18-month period. And I'd show my book, folio, and he'd say, yeah, nice. Yeah, when you got some new work in a few months, maybe come and show me that. I want to see how you develop.
Right.
So I must have seen him, 4 or 5 times, and then he finally gave me a job. And my first commission was a day trip down the river, down the Thames, with Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer.
Brilliant.
With the journalist Miranda Sawyer, to the Cutty Sark at Greenwich. Yeah. Did some pictures of Vic and Bob on the Cutty Sark, and then went on the boat back to Westminster Pier. It was like a 1-2 page thing, and that was my first real job. And then he gave me quite a few more things after that, Steve. And then he disappeared. He left Select. That first shoot for them was probably done, I think, around September of 93. And then in probably February 94, he disappeared. He just left. And I didn't know what happened to him. And I was like, oh my God, I finally make a contact.
That's it.
And he's gone. And that was January, February. And then at this point, I'd also just got a mobile phone. 93, I got a Sony Mars bar, the mobile.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in M&S buying some socks when my mobile rang in probably April 94. And it was Steve Reed, and he'd resurfaced, and he'd been working on a top secret new project for a publisher, IPC Magazines.
Right.
Huge publishing. He published the NME, Melody Maker, millions of mags. And he said, I'm working on a new mag. Can't say much about it. It's a secret. But I've got a shoot for you if you want to do it. And it involved going to do the footballer Graham Lasso, who played for Chelsea, and a guy called Graham Lambert, who was in the band called the Inspiral Carpets. And they both had a hobby of old cars like Triumph Heralds and Hillman Imps and things like that.
Oh, right.
And it was shooting them with their cars in somewhere up, I think it was in Oldham, So I went up there on the train with the press officer from Mute Records, who were the Inspiral Carpets record label, and also had Depeche Mode and stuff like that. She was called Angie. And we went up, did the shoot, went well, and then I started doing stuff for this new magazine that Steve was working on, which was called Loaded.
Oh God!
And that was for
huge title. It became
absolutely enormous. Yeah. But at that point, it was just a new mag. I didn't know anything about it. I think the first issue had. I remember on the train, Angie had a copy of the first issue, which had Gary Oldman on the cover, and that was my first time I saw it.
Yeah.
And the pictures I did went in the second issue. And then I did 3 or 4 more shoots for them, small things, and then one of them was Oasis. So at that point they were not known. They only had one single out. And those pictures went down really well. And then I started getting a lot of work.
You just need that Steve Reed in your life.
And it was also Angie Summerside from Mute Records, who came with me on the train, because we got on really well that day, and she gave me work, and she went on later. She gave me some stuff for Mute, so some record company work, and then she went on. That was 94. By 96, she was the marketing director for all of Sony Music, and she gave me tons of work at Sony. That one thing. I'm going to do this job for 150 quid on a train. I'm with someone I've never met before from a record company, and it turns out that, you know, in her own, she gave me an opportunity. Just meeting her was an incredible, you know, opened the door. Steve opened the door. You know, there's probably Aidan Sullivan is a guy who was the picture editor at the Sunday Times magazine, in that he, you know, later in the 90s, about 98, 99, he gave me huge opportunity. You know, there's these people, there's maybe a dozen of them that I've met in my life.
Who become those important figures.
Who just, they open a new door, and you're into a whole new suite of rooms through this door. And you never know where those doors are going to appear, and you don't know it at the time either. It's only transpires later. You look back and you go, meeting those people changed things for me for the better.
Sliding doors. Theory of life.
Which is why I always say, don't say no when you can say yes, because you just never know.
And Chris Floyd returns very shortly for my photo walk, my photo meander with him today. I need a bit of help, please. If you could, he says, arms outstretched. Please, sir, I want some more. I always thought in the film Oliver, when I looked at that bowl he has outstretched and everybody eating gruel, I thought, that doesn't look so bad. Gruel? It's like porridge, isn't it? It looks hot. But I'm reminded, whenever I say that gruel isn't quite like porridge. Anyway, yes, it helps the podcast to be discovered if you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You might well be at the Apple Podcasts app as we speak, so it's easy to do so. Or the Spotify one, because there's a similar thing going on there. But if you're not, head to one of those apps, please, and just leave a few words of encouragement and what you think about the podcast. And if you can leave a star review, it goes 1 to 5. Yeah, I know, I'd prefer more barks. 5 of those, please. That's what we need, not 1. Yeah, 2, that's 2. Do we have a third? Do a third? 3, another one, 4, and one more. 6. That's like a Spinal Tap movie. This review goes to 11. I know. So anyway, if you could do that, enough now. If you can do that, then I'd greatly appreciate that. That way the great podcast sphere recognises us more and suggests us to more people who'd like to walk along with us and become part of our, I think, wonderful community. Our community of kindness, as I often say at the head of the show. So let's take a moment to remind you of this week's assignment. It's a one-word assignment, as all of the assignments, the challenges have been this year. It's set by 2 super photographers, former guest Jackie Matachuk from last week, and our friend and photographer Lynn Fraser, who both chose the same word. And at the start I thought, because I'd forgotten they'd set the same word, and at the start I thought, oh no, what are we going to do? And then I thought, well, why not feature both their voices? So here they are, Jackie and Lynn.
The photo walk assignment.
Okay, one word then. The one word challenge, the assignment for this month. What words, Jackie, have you chosen?
I would have to say connection.
So why? And how does that connect to your work and how you approach your subjects?
For me, the connection comes with my subjects. And in order to create connection, I need to be invested in them. I need to understand them. I need to respect them. I need to know them. I think that would be an assignment I would be excited to see in a visual response is, what has made you feel connected? And that could be connected to them. It could be connected to the moment. It could be connected to a past experience, but something that really has stirred your soul, made you feel something deeply. And if you can turn that into a moment, a frozen frame, you're going to have an immense success and I think feeling of accomplishment just within your own world.
So my word is connection. It's a word that crops up frequently when we're talking about photography, and I think it's a word that's very open to interpretation. So you can look at it from a literal angle, or you can look at it from a metaphorical angle. And I think it's particularly pertinent in the last 2 weeks because we've made connections with new people on the retreat, which has been lovely. So my thoughts on the assignment were that you could maybe show a relationship between people and or an object or different objects, perhaps a spark between yourself as a photographer and the subject.
Can you think of one of yours? What's a connection picture that you can think back in the last year, maybe with all your trips you've done in various places?
I took an image of one of the girls when we went to visit the Arbori tribe, and she stared right down the lens of the camera, right into my soul, and I feel that's a really strong connection there that was formed between the two of us during that portrait.
Well, maybe we can use that one on the assignments page to demonstrate that perfectly.
Yeah.
So, once again, the word is...
Connection.
Good luck with the challenge. If you have a picture that you'd like to send in, what have you found, pups? No, don't chew that. It's a bit of plastic. Oh, honestly, there's sticks here. There's sticks galore. There's the best sticks in the world. And you've picked up a bit of plastic. Leave it alone. Come on, please. You'll hurt yourself. Come on. Yes, good luck. Send in your pictures. 1 picture, please, to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. If you can send them in 2,500 pixels wide, you are an absolute star. A 5-star. Possibly an 11-star, as Barney pointed out a moment ago. But if you can't, don't worry. Send in the full resolution picture. I'll do the heavy lifting. And if you can... when you send these in, just make sure because we've had a few of these of late, where email apps have sent in pictures so small, you'd need a macro lens to see them, because sometimes they're resized to really, really small pixel counts. Make sure it doesn't do that. Send them in. Don't send them watermarked, and please don't put borders around them. But do send me a link to your Instagram, your Vero, your website, your blog, somewhere where I can point people to go and see the rest of your amazing work. Right, shall we return to my chat with Chris? Let's do that. Here's my conversation today, my walking guest, Chris Floyd. Your credits now read like an A to Z of celebs. They really do. Let me just read a few. Attenborough, McCartney. I tried to do this, by the way, in alphabetical order, but I probably could, actually, but with lots of names. But Bowie's in there as well. Oasis, you've mentioned. Loaded magazine, by the way. There was an album called Loaded.
Oh, not the Primal Scream?
No. That was an album by Primal Scream called Loaded, but Loaded also, the magazine, did a Loaded album. Did you know that?
Did they? Oh, God, I didn't remember that.
Yeah. I just remember being presented with that by a music plugger. I thought, wouldn't that be funny if you'd have shot that cover? No, well, you're not. No. I'll go home and see if there's any credits or pictures in there now. Maybe you're in there. Who knows? But the Royals, last time we chatted, you hadn't photographed the future King and Queen. In fact, at that time, it would be the future King and Queen, wouldn't it, of course? But how did that come about? Because that's not your regular daily celeb work.
It was during COVID. It was during sort of spring of 2021. And I was at home, and I got an email about 7 o'clock in the evening from someone at Kensington Palace. And she just said, I got your name. I got your info, your details from Nick Cullinan, he was the director of the National Portrait Gallery, and he's now the director of the British Museum. But he was at the MPG then. She said, I got your details from Nick Cullinan at the National Portrait Gallery. Are you available to have a conversation about a possible opportunity?
Yeah. They never say, do they?
No.
Who it's going to be.
And so she put her mobile number in the email, and then I called her back, and she said, they were the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge then.
Yeah.
So, it's their 10th wedding anniversary coming up, and we wondered if if you would like to photograph them for that. So I said, of course. So I went down to the palace, and they gave me a tour, did a little recce, and it was spring, it was sort of April, you know, the daffodils are out, the bluebells are out, the garden's kind of coming in, it's really beautiful. Also, we've been in lockdown since January, so we were in like 3.5 months of lockdown, and I just said, well, we should just do it, let's just do the pictures in the garden. It's
An environmental portrait.
Yeah, it looks great. So we had sort of 40 minutes scheduled for the shoot, and I had 3 assistants, I think, and it actually rained.
Oh no.
About 10 minutes after we started, it started raining, and we just all took shelter in this greenhouse for like 5 minutes.
The 3 assistants.
Yeah. William and Kate,
you.
the private secretary for the palace.
Yeah.
We're just all huddled in this greenhouse with William just going, do you think it's going to stop? Should we go inside?
What sort of small talk can you do? That would be my worst nightmare, I think.
But we had such a great time.
Did
and
you?
the 40 minutes ended up going on for way longer.
Yeah.
It ended up being about an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
And we had a really good time. And, you know, all the pictures I shot are really fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of laughter. And then we had to spend the rest of the day in the palace doing the edit, and we got it down from about 1,200 pictures to just kept shooting, and you know, got it down to like the final 2, and then they signed them off. But they were great in terms of, you know, she said to me with the final 2 that I did an edit got it down from 1,200 to sort of 50, and then gave her the 50 to look at. And we just sat in this room in the palace, and she picked, from that 50, she picked 10 of those that she liked.
Yeah.
And then William had left by that point, he'd gone somewhere else. So she then just sent them to him, and like half an hour later he replied and said, I like these 2 or these 4. And then she said, well, and then at that point she said, well, what do you think? You know, she was really so lovely, because she just said to me, you know, these have got your name on them.
Yeah.
I want you to be happy with the choices as well.
How lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you happy with them? And I was, you know, again, it's almost, I'm so conditioned to just being grateful for the work. So, you know, my default position is, look, if you're happy, I'm happy.
You're not responsible, by the way, for her, because you shoot Fujifilm. She's a Fujifilm shooter.
Yeah, she is.
She loves her photography.
Yeah.
You're not responsible for her change from something to Fujifilm.
No, I don't think that's me.
No?
I did
just
give
wonder
her...
whether you'd had the Fujifilm cameras out on the day, or...
No, I did.
What did you use?
I used my XT2 and 3, and at one point I gave one of them to her and said, you take pictures of William with that,
Yeah.
and I'll take pictures of you taking pictures of him. Because then, you know, my thinking there is, well, I'm going to get, you know, more pictures. Because I'll get my pictures, but also I'll get her pictures of him.
Too. That's very canny. An XT2 and an XT3 for So for anybody that says you can't shoot serious portraits.
The
the GFX.
Yeah. So what the 2 pictures that were published, one's on the GFX and one is on the XT. I can't remember if it's the 2 or the 3. Yeah.
But yeah, for all those that say you can't shoot with an APS-C sensor, you know, proper portraits.
You can.
Yeah.
You can shoot with anything. It's just horses for courses, isn't it? Those XTs are just so tactile, and you can really get a lot done with them.
I'm surprised that you haven't upgraded to a 4 and a 5.
There's nothing wrong with... I'm just happy with them.
So you're not really a gearhead.
No, I'm not really.
You don't have to have the latest and greatest.
No.
Gas, as we grow older, many problems present themselves to us, but gas is not one of yours.
No, I don't have as long as it all works.
That's fine.
You know, and I'm not really bothered.
No,
you know.
No. We've talked about personal projects quite a lot on this show, and I wonder how important personal projects are to you, whether you have a running list of things that you like or would like to do.
Not really. I think my big weakness in a way is my lack of interest in personal projects, because, being completely honest, I need the affirmation that comes from being commissioned, from getting a call or an email and being asked by someone to do something for them.
Right.
You know, I need to. That's the thing that motivates me. You know, and I have done personal projects, but I tend to become a bit drifty with them, where I just sort of.
Yeah.
I think I've also got probably a bit of a short attention span, where I think, oh, I'm going to do a project. I'll go and I'll spend a day doing whatever it might be, and I'll do a day, and I think, well, I'm sort of I've done it now. You know?
What's next?
So I guess personal projects in a way, but they take a day.
Yeah.
I wish I did. I'm in awe of people that can pursue projects for years and years and years. But I don't, in a way, I don't particularly value my own opinion. I don't. You take a picture. I take a picture, and to me, it doesn't really have any validity unless it's got a home to go to, either a book cover or a magazine or an advert or whatever it might be. You know, I've got lots and lots of pictures that I've done, particularly travelling for work, landscapes and things.
Yeah.
You know, and they're really, I've got some beautiful landscapes, but, and I put some of them on the wall or give them to people as presents. And sometimes I've sold prints to people. But, I'm just not driven by, in a way, photography for me is, because I am quite a introverted, shy person in a way. I'm not particularly social or sociable. And the photography is a way for me to meet people. Without it, I don't wouldn't meet many people. You know, I'm not very outgoing without the camera, and the camera kind of gives me an alter ego that I can be this other person with the camera. The rest of the time, I'm like a sort of video game character waiting to be activated. You know.
What do you like then when you walk into a room of people, no camera, just you, the bare Chris Floyd? Well, not literally, obviously.
Absolutely terrible. I'm terrible.
Are you?
Yeah. Shy, not particularly self-confident, a bit embarrassed at my own sort of physical presence. Just not. I can't do small talk. I love a big, deep, heavy conversation with anyone, but I can't do the small talk bit that you need to get to the start of the big, heavy conversation in a way. You know.
Right.
So I'll often stall at that point, and I will, I've got one of my brothers-in-law is the complete opposite of me. He's an unbelievable extrovert, and he walks into a room, and it's almost like he physically sucks up all the energy in the room, draws it in, and he's energized.
Yeah.
And he'll walk into a room where he doesn't know anybody, and
he can hold
by the end of the night, he's holding, and if I'm the opposite, I walk into a room and I feel the room drawing my energy from me, sucking it out of me, and I feel instantly exhausted.
So do you avoid those moments?
Not that I avoid them.
This is why you've moved out to a house. Miles away from the city and anyone else.
It's because I think also the other thing is in this line of work, it's entirely subjective, the world of photography and creativity in general, whether it's music or photography or painting or anything. It's you live and die on other people's opinions. Yeah. Whereas if you're Mark Cavendish and you win 35 stages of the Tour de France in your career, it means you've won more stages than anyone ever, and you're better at that than anyone.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Whereas we live in a world where people go, oh, I don't like that. And someone else says, oh, I love that. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. There's some dog training going on here. I thought, no, don't start now, not with the whistles.
Sorry? I'm okay with dogs.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat a whole one.
What flavour is he? I've picked out a few photographs that aren't necessarily new. So we talked about the Royals, which is newish, new work in a way.
Yeah.
There's a particular photograph, and I want to ask you about your relationship with social media in a moment, since we've got onto the subject of being social. There's a photograph. It's not too far back actually in your where was it? Instagram. Yes, it was on Instagram that I saw it. Or was it your website? Anyway, look, it's a picture of Christopher Reeve. It's a beautiful picture, but it's a tragic photograph, all in one. It's an extraordinary photograph. Do you remember that shoot?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Oh, shall we go around this way? Look, we've managed to find the really muddy part again. Hold on. We'll just navigate this. Hold on to those thoughts for a moment. There we go.
We are really doing this. We're not in a studio.
This is not Foley.
The Archer's studio.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, that shoot.
Yes, it was. That was in America. So when I lived in America. So it was a commission for Esquire, American Esquire mag, and they do have a regular feature called "What I've Learned," and it was for that. So we were just, sent to his house and turned up, and his wife Dana had made lunch. So we all had lunch and around the table, and then he was fed through a tube, but he had, for those that don't know, so Christopher Reeve was an actor, and he played Superman in the 70s,
80s,
and 80s, yeah. And he was the Superman of my childhood, which is what I said in the caption that I wrote.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, he was a very keen rider, and he did eventing, and he'd had a terrible accident and been paralysed from the neck. He was quadriplegic, so he'd lost everything from the neck down, which is just a terrible irony, really, for someone who played Superman.
Yeah.
So he's at home, and his wife made us lunch, and we had a really nice lunch, and it was a summer's day. It was a really lovely afternoon, and then we set up. I shot some of it. Well, I shot it with a 10-8 plate camera, and then we were in this room in the house, and he was there, and while we were setting up the camera, he just fell asleep, waiting for us. So he was just completely asleep. So I shot like a few sheets of film of him asleep in the wheelchair, and then he woke up maybe after 40 minutes, and I said, let's go outside. So we just went outside, and I had a black kind of velvet cloth.
Yes.
And we took everything out there and put him in front of the black cloth. And when you sort of when you work a big 10-8 plate camera, you're in a little world of your own, really. You're under a cloth, another black cloth.
Yeah.
Over your head. World's upside down and back to front.
Back to front, yeah.
And you're just sort of fixated on trying to focus it and compose it, and you got to talk to them at the same time through a muffled cloth.
Yeah.
And he had this pad on one side of his head, imagine almost like a car headrest,
yeah,
but coming up from the shoulder by the ear, and his head was, that was there to hold his head up. Because he had no neck muscle power. So without that pad, his head would not stay up. It would just droop. But for this big close-up 10-8 portrait of his face, he wanted to take the pad off. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't want that in the picture. So the nurse removed the pad.
It's the hand.
Yeah, the nurse removed the pad, and then she puts her hand in to support his head, and then he said, he had a very croaky voice, very quiet, whispery voice, and he also had his breathing machine, and that's rhythmically hissing like the tss, tss, tss. So you got that, and the plan was that I would say when I was ready, the nurse would remove her hand, his head would probably stay upright for maybe 10 seconds, and then at some point it would tip one way or another, and we'd have to do the picture, get the shot, in that few seconds while the head was upright. Did it 2 or 3 times, and then maybe on the 4th occasion, I just suddenly realised that the hand that's the picture with the hand, not without. This anonymous hand, and I remember she had really, really nice hand. She had really nice nails, very manicured nails, just clean, nude nails. And I just thought, that's the picture. And so I just, just leave your hand there. And I remember just thinking how softly her hand was holding his head.
Yeah, she caressed his head, really.
She was just sort of supporting him. And I just thought, that's the picture. So I said, actually, just leave your hand in, and that's it. And that turned out to be the one. And I have put that picture on Instagram at least once before, a couple of years ago maybe. But I put it up on the day of what would have been, I think, his birthday.
That's right.
I just happened to see something about it being, he would have been 77, I think.
Uh-huh.
And it just sort of took off on Instagram. It's, thousands and thousands of kind of comments and likes and stuff. People. It's funny how I did it once before and no one really notices it, and then suddenly it takes off.
I wonder, the feature was called What I've Learned, was that right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that was what he'd learned. What did you, sounds a bit cliche, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there something you learned that day? He was your Superman,
yeah.
like you're a similar age to me, but he was your Superman, he was mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story really tells you what I learned, which is that don't be afraid to open yourself up to serendipity. With the hand. I didn't plan that. It just happened, and so you can have all the ideas in the world, but sometimes fate can just come and just gift you something that makes it, just takes it to another level.
Yeah.
And some people find it hard to accept that because they've got a fixed idea about what their concept is or their idea is, and this is my idea, and we're not, it's almost like the ego can't let go of the idea they had. And quite more often than not, I actually rely entirely on, let's just see what happens. I rely on my ability to create the conditions that allow interesting things to happen. And you do that by getting the subject in a place where they're completely relaxed and they've actually forgotten why you're there. They've forgotten about the camera and they just, and then they just gift you something out of the blue.
And we'll return to Chris Floyd very shortly. A couple of things. On the front of the website now, there's a link to our new newsletter. I'm trying to really build that. Best laid plans are to, each Friday, I will send out a reminder of the latest episode, but also to publish inspirational thoughts and ideas that I find. It's on the front of the Photowalk website, photowalk.show. You will find a link where you can subscribe to the newsletter. And whilst I have your ears, the Photowalk retreat is booking now for Scotland. You'll find that on the website too, under Scotland 25. This year, it's in September every year. This year, one of our returning Photowalkers suggested a word that I think really sums up my emotion that I have for these amazing events that you've been joining me on for, this will be the 4th year. And that is senses. The word senses was applied by Judith McDermott, and that's what we call it now, the Senses Retreat. We stay in a wonderful part of the Highlands of Scotland on the Black Isle near Inverness, far enough away to make this a true retreat, with rail, road and flight links conveniently close, as I say each week. The barn's got private bedrooms, there's a wonderful nightly meal prepared for us, and we walk and we talk, we laugh, we make pictures, we explore film photography, we print in the darkroom. Doesn't matter if you've never done it before, because our darkroom mentor, Matt Sillers, is brilliant as a tutor. It's all, and there's a sound workshop, and we'll be talking about printing this year as well. It's all squeezed into 1 week. Every year we try to make it a little different too for returning retreatees, but overall this truly is a place and a chance to retreat from the world with our cameras and our creative thoughts. First week now, completely full. All space is gone. The second week just has 2 spaces left. So go to the Photowalk website, photowalk.show, and you can join us through the contact form there. It's getting a bit mizzly out here, pups, isn't it? Bit of mizzle. What we call mizzle. I know, Pups knows that when we come here, usually we end up in the coffee shop. And if we don't look like we're wandering that direction, he goes off in that direction anyway. Don't you, Sir Barkalot? Because he's thinking, oh, come on, this way. There's a sausage bap waiting, surely. Right, let's return to my conversation with my walking guest this week, Chris Floyd. Having established that you started in film, that the way that for a photographer of that period, the way that you found work and received commissions was through presenting portfolios. The world has changed now. I'm sure portfolios still play a part of it, but so does social media. And presenting your work through social media and the various different platforms that there are. What's your relationship with social media like?
Gosh. Well, I'm only on Instagram now. So I was on Twitter. I joined Twitter in 2009, and I loved it for a long time. But I think it's become a dark, dark place that I want no part of now. So I left there. Long gone. Tried Threads for a while, but didn't really. I felt like it was. It just didn't have the magic that the sort of early first 7 years of Twitter had, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, Instagram's the one for me. It's probably the only thing where it's the only place where where there's any kind of, I guess, marketing really. You know, I don't do mail outs or anything like that. I haven't got a mailing list.
You have an agent?
I've got an agent, yes, but I don't. Not because I don't want to or anything like that. I just don't know how to. And also, I find, as I said a little bit earlier, I'm very self-conscious and sort of awkward, and I just can't do a mail out where I feel like a sort of pathetic serf at the gates of the Content Palace.
Right.
You know, on my knees with my bowl.
Please,
look, here are my hand-woven mittens. Please buy them.
Yeah.
So I just have to wait for people to see the work. I do, obviously I've got a website, but Instagram is the daily, is the river that keeps moving.
What about your agent?
What about my agent?
Yeah. Well, as in they are also that opportunity to receive commissions.
No, she's doing Louise. She's called Louise. They're doing what they do, mail outs and making contact with agencies and stuff like that. And that she actually is always pestering me to do a proper print portfolio, which I've been promising for about 2 years, and I just find it difficult to. Can
I promise Louise on your behalf?
Yes,
then one's
promise
coming.
Lou. I promise I'll do it.
Yeah. I'll send her this recording. Said Louise, it's on its way. If you're starting though now,
I think that the new generation are far less caught up in awkward self-consciousness than people of my age, of our age. Mm. I think we grew up in a time when it just wasn't the done thing to shout about yourself.
That was an English thing, though.
Well, it's an English thing generally.
That's why on the show I drag behind me what I call it's my fictitious, you can probably see it actually, it's my sofa of flattery. If anybody writes in something that flatters me, my true Englishman is engaged immediately. Not used to that.
But we didn't grow up with that.
No, we didn't.
If you did anything well, you were just told, well, it's not for you to shout about it,
And my dad always said humility is your strongest force.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I wouldn't say I agree with that, but it's just I'm burdened with it regardless,
Yeah.
But I think younger generation, people under the age of probably 35, are far, far more. They've grown up in a digital world, and where people are not embarrassed about saying who they are.
Is it a harder industry to work in now? Because every generation will say, oh, you've got it so much easier. We didn't have the opportunities that you have. You can market to a world. You've got the world's at your fingertips.
There's quite a few answers to that question. I think that it's easier in the way that you can tell the world about your work far without leaving your bed now, Yeah. The flip side of that coin is that I grew up in a world of editorial photography, of magazines, and that whole slice of the market has more or less gone. So when I started out, there were probably 10, 12 music magazines, 3 or 4 movie mags.
I don't even know if the likes of Smash Hits live on, do they?
No, not movie mags.
Anime.
Lots of interesting mags. All the women's mags, Vogue, Elle, Cosmopolitan, Harper's Bazaar, all that stuff. Where you could do the kind of work I wanted to do, and get paid reasonably okay for it and pay your expenses. And then, so that's all gone now. And, you know, that work that I did in my mid-20s, that gave me a footing on the ladder where I could pay my rent, and then, you know, within 3 or 4 years of starting to get regular work, I was able to get a mortgage. You know, I bought a flat. And then from there came commercial work, you know, which obviously pays much better, and, you know, money for usage and reusage and all that sort of thing. But, you know, the bottom rungs of the ladder have been kind of chopped away. And I think that's very difficult because, you know, I mean, I see a lot of young photographers who they're really having to shoot a lot of stuff for nothing, you know, for no money.
Are they their own worst enemies for agreeing to do that, or has the industry pushed them that way?
I think the industry has pushed them. I mean, that's just the way it is. I think that, you know, everyone's trying to get on, and if you're given an opportunity to do something, then as I said earlier, you never know where it might lead. So people have that mindset in you know, a good way and a not so good way. You know, then now we've got AI, which, you know, hasn't really touched me so far.
How do you think it might?
I can't really tell. I think in some ways I'm lucky that I work with people who I don't do what I think of as generic work, say lifestyle photography for a fruit drink, where you want a picture of a girl who's just come out of the gym and is replenishing her electrolytes with...
You wouldn't do that, sort of?
Well, it's not that I wouldn't. No one asked me to.
Right.
So, but, you know, that's kind of work where it's the subject in the frame, say the girl coming out of the gym, is just she's a character, right? She's a stereotype, a character, a generic part, recognisable modern figure. So you can generate that character in CGI, couldn't you? And you don't have to pay model fees, and you don't have to pay photography, and you don't have to pay for location hire, and you don't have to pay for retail. You just got to pay the person that does the AI.
Well, there's already an agency doing that.
Is there?
I can't remember the name of it. I talked about them a good year ago, actually, an agency that they're very open and honest about it. None of this is real. It might even be called None of This Is Real, I don't know, But
I don't do that kind of work. You know, that's not my little niche area. Yeah. And then the things I do, you know, sometimes I make films and stuff. And I you know, last year I did a film at Chateau Lafite in Bordeaux, one of the grand claret red Bordeaux houses. And we were down in the cellars, in the Cave, I think it's called. You know, and I was thinking about it then, actually. I was thinking, well, this is a specific place that is known and has a name. You have to go and film this. Yeah. If you want to tell a story about this place, you've got to go. You need to send a person with a camera and a microphone and everything else down there to do it. You can't make it up because it's a place that exists, and we're telling a story about this place. So, for instance, that kind of work, I can't see how AI would really affect it.
You didn't obviously know when you started filming, and you've been filming for a while now, actually, that was one facet that might be AI-proof for the moment, at any rate. The filming's been an important part of your portfolio, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's back to your question about personal projects.
Maybe that is.
I get to do things filming that are take a longer arc of time to start and undertake and then complete. Yeah. Because you've got the pre-production part of it, the planning, then the shooting, then the editing, then should we put some music on this? What kind of music should we put on this? You know, or whatever. So it's something that takes place over weeks or months, whereas stills photography is, a day, 2 days, a bit of retouching, done. You know, I love that aspect of making films, and also working with a crew, people who are all talented in their own field, who all add a layer of magic to the cake.
Very much.
You know, the sound design. Someone does some Foley.
Yeah.
You know, you got a colour grader. You know, does amazing things to what originally looked like quite a flat picture. Yeah. You know, suddenly it's a symphony of teal and orange.
It would be impossible to do proper justice to your entire career in just a walk. And there is a pub to meet at the end of this path that we're walking along at the moment. So I'm going to curtail our conversation with two questions. One of them, the audience already know what's coming up, and I think you'll do a really good answer to it. There's pressure. The first one, though, is, and having talked about Christopher Reeve, for example, and the royal family, and we talked about Oasis, that was a particularly important picture of Liam that you probably didn't realise at the time was going to be as important as it's become in your portfolio. Is there a picture you can draw upon from your career that's a particular? There's probably quite a few, but if you could pick one, a signature image that says, "This is Chris Floyd. This is my career. This is my feelings summed up in a picture."
Yes, and that would be David Hockney. For
not the one that was at the top of the stairs. I said, "Who's
that's
this?"
One of them, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that one.
I thought it was David Hockney, but it was a sort of a motion.
Yeah, he's in his living room, in a sort of very gloomy, dark sort of. His living room was very gloomily lit, but cosy, you know. But in terms of quantity of light for photography, there wasn't a lot of it. But the mood in the room was gorgeous.
Beautiful, yeah.
Hockney, for the reason that I have like an absolute grade A 20th century bona fide legend, you know, great artist of the 20th century. And not only that, I took some pictures of him that I'm really proud of, because I've had amazing people that I've met where the pictures are okay, and I've done pictures that I'm really pleased with, but of a subject who is, you know, maybe a bit second division. But here I've got someone who I think is, you know, you've got in the 20th century, you've got, you know, Picasso, Magritte, Hockney, Dali, you know, he's up there with all of them. Yeah. And I got to spend time with him, and not only did I get picked, I had the exact picture I saw in my head I came out of it with, which was not the one that you saw by the stairs, but there's another one with a green, he's in front of it, he's got a green canvas behind him.
Oh, right.
Where it looked exactly how I saw it in my head before I went to his house. That, plus I had a fantastic, good-natured, really fun debate with him about photography versus drawing. Which is something I'll always remember. You know, it was only, you know, like 5 minutes while we were doing the pictures. He said something like, of course, you know, you can't convey in a photograph. I can't do his voice, but
You're doing fairly well then.
You can't convey in a photograph what you can convey in a drawing.
Yeah.
And I sort of gave him the bait back and threw something back at him. And then the thing I remember him saying was, "Photography doesn't come close, doesn't even come close," like that. And
he sounded quite angry then.
No, but it was really fun.
Yeah.
And then that was in his studio, and then that was also, we were in his studio, which he's had this house in Kensington since the early 60s, I think. So we're surrounded by all the story of his life in that house, although he's obviously known for spending years and years in California. That house, I think, was as much a part of him as anything in California. And I'm in his house, and it's just everything I got into this game for, which was, as I said earlier, was to meet interesting people who do amazing things. And just to quickly, just to go on from that, it's why I sort of don't like the word celebrity. You know, often I'm very lucky in that I've been privileged to photograph people who are the best in the world at what they do. Whether it's Stephen Hawking or Paul McCartney or David Hockney, these people have defined the era in which we live. And I just think the word celebrity, of course I've done some people we might think of as celebs, but those people to me they're just pure out and out talent, you know, and that's far more precious. And to have the privilege of spending some time with them, even if it's, you know, an hour, is more than anyone else, most people get. And to be treated by them as equal, I have to say, actually, the people like at that level are often the most respectful.
I agree with you.
Hockney, really respectful.
Yeah.
McCartney, you know, we had a sort of, it was complicated and difficult, but he was still, like, you know, treated me like a human being. And, you know, Bowie the same. You know, so those people are never anything other than...
The royal family, actually. That would be a perfect example.
Yeah.
There you are, standing in a shed or something.
Well, also with the thing with the royal family was they picked me.
Yeah.
You know, they picked me. So she picked me, you know, and she had seen my work and decided, yes, I like that. Let's get him.
No, that's wonderful. We were walking along this path, this bit actually, when I think I asked you right at the start of our conversation, right at the start of this show, about how COVID had affected you as a photographer, because that was pretty much, you know, as we were coming out the worst of it, that was pretty much when we had a chat last time. But one question I would not have asked you at that time, because I wasn't closing interviews with this question, although I am now, is a three-letter question. Well, the three-letter word appears in the question, and that is, what is your why?
Yeah, easy. My why is to gain access to other human beings who make my time on this earth more compelling. That's why I do it. The photography actually is the byproduct. Yeah. You know, there's a photographer called Steve Pike who once said, I stole this from him, when I go to photograph someone, I have a conversation, and the photograph is just a record of the conversation. So and I heard him say that, and I just thought, that is why. I mean, I go to have a conversation actually, and the photograph is just what comes out of it. It's the justification for going there in the first place.
And that's it for this week. I've so enjoyed talking with Chris. There's so many things to talk to him about, all his projects, stories behind the people that he's spoken with, and now we know how he feels about the conversation. Well, I think we can expand on that point, that's for sure. But that is it for today. If you can't wait until next Friday and would like to walk a little bit further together, then the Extra Mile edition number 113 is waiting for you. Chris Floyd returns, and he's photographing one of the most famous people in the world, but we can't reveal a name. I will, in time, reveal the name, but I still want to play you a further 20 minutes conversation that we had, a really super story that we had as we walked, that we shared, or he shared as we walked. This story about having 8 minutes to photograph one of the most famous people on this planet, and they truly are. And he talks about this photo shoot and what he went through actually, and how somebody who's been photographing for so many years manages to think on their feet when everything is being thrown at you, to possibly throw a proper, spanner in the works, as they say. So that's the story that I have on the Extra Mile today with him. It's part of the Extra Mile is part of our private Patreon channel, supported by our wonderful community that we call Extra Milers. Each week there is an extra show which often features the community that's a part of this thing. But today, it's Chris Floyd.
On this week's Extra Mile.
You know, I just know, because this is where years and years of experience comes in, right? So I just know that getting film equipment into a big London hotel is an absolute nightmare. For bureaucracy, logistics, and also security, especially these days. You know, if you turn up with a carload of electronics, they're absolutely terrified of what you've got in there, which is completely understandable. So I just know that if we come at 5:15, we are not even going to open a case and take a light out for an hour minimum, you know.
But by then the shoot would have been over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she was adamant, you know, we can't meet you until 5:15. We've got other things on the schedule. So I just have to bypass it. So I just kind of nod and agree with her, and then we part company, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5:15. I immediately go to the loading bay around the back of the hotel. I go to the loading bay, I find the loading bay guy, I give him 50 quid, and I say, hi, my name's Chris, I'm here tomorrow to do a shoot, we're going to be in this room on the lower ground floor, we could really do some help getting all our gear in, and we need all our gear to be outside the door of that room by 5:15.
Our PS is to come, and it's a little bit different to the norm, but before that we need a play-out song just to make some final frames to. I'm acutely aware, having said that, I've not been not really been using my camera so much today as I've been making this photo walk. I hope you have. We might bring back, I think, the shutter sync, because it was a really great way of seeing what you're seeing as you listen to the show, even though that wasn't always walking, was it? Shutter sync from your daily chores, or driving in a car, as it happened to be quite a lot. Anyway, a play-out song just to make some final frames to, or think about what's been said today, and I know you'll love this. It's brand new from Lewis Island, a song called I Know a Place. And I will say this, that no matter how you feel about last week, careful Neil, I'm being cautious, exhaustion or whatever, actually, thank God for this picture-making thing that we do. Hey? A very good PS coming next.
Running low on the borderlines, and you tell me that you're doing fine. Morning color lights the hall, pulls you right on through the door. So hold onto all that feeds your soul. I know a place where the sun shines every day. So come with me, I'll take you there. I'll take you there. Coloring outside the lines, and you tell me you're just passing by. Drowning in your reasons why. Talk is cheap, but we're wasting time. So hold onto all that feeds your soul. I know a place where the sun shines every day. So come with me, I'll take you there. I'll take you there. Running low on the borderlines. Talk is cheap and we're wasting time.
Lewis Island and I Know a Place. Just a few closing thoughts before the PS today. My sincere thanks to you. If you are or you're about to become an extra miler, we'll keep building this wonderful community of kindness together in the photographic and walking world. A safe place to share our thoughts about this thing that we do, photographing and walking. My thanks to Neil Ford, who looks after IT, Andrea Gilpin, who's across Instagram, and Kelly Mitchell, who looks after our Facebook members. If I haven't mentioned it during the show, some pictures today on the show page from our guest Chris, so you get a feeling for his work, although there'll be links, of course, to his work also in his Instagram on the show page today. Write a postscript for the show. I almost feel like the boy who didn't do his homework properly, so handed some stuff that's already been prepared in by somebody else, that is. But would you mind a repeat of something? I'd very much like to hear a little of Chris Floyd's Why again, as it's been marinating nicely during that play-out song.
You know, there's a photographer called Steve Pike who once said, I stole this from him, when I go to photograph someone, I have a conversation, and the photograph is just a record of the conversation. So and I said, I heard him say that, and I just thought, that is why. I mean, I go to have a conversation, actually, and the photograph is just what comes out of it. It's the justification for going there in the first place.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.